Am I naughty for ambushing my sister at her wedding reception, because she told me her wedding was child-free when it actually wasn't? My 46 meters sister Tracy, 29F, and I aren't close, but we have a good relationship, at least before this all happened. Tracy got married recently, and she told me the wedding was child-free. I have a daughter Ella, 12F, and asked Tracy if she could come, but she said sorry, she and her partner were sticking to the rules. I managed to arrange for Ella to stay at a friend's house for a couple of days, since the wedding was in a different city. So I went to the wedding and I saw quite a few older children, including my other siblings' kids. I know this sounds like I should have known from before from my other siblings, but I never thought to ask them, "Oh, are your kids going?" I did ask my brother at the wedding and he said he was told the child-free limit was only for really young kids, the disruptive ages. It was obvious Tracy lied to me about not bringing Ella. We went through the ceremony and towards the end of the reception, I pulled Tracy aside and said I realized she'd completely lied to me and there were plenty of other kids. She looked pretty uncomfortable and said it wasn't a big deal, but I replied I deserve an apology, and so does Ella at some point. Tracy got mad and said I was ambushing her at her own wedding and it's her and her partner's choice what they do. We ended the conversation there and went off to talk to other people. She sent me a text later saying I was being selfish and I'm the one that should be apologizing to her and her husband, for making a big deal out of this. I'll admit I sent a not so nice text back about her caring more about aesthetics than people. Now it's sort of blown up within our family.
In the comments someone asks OP the question we're all thinking.
Comment: well, clearly she targeted your daughter. The question is why? Because your daughter is going to figure it out at some point, and realize her aunt specifically did not want her at the wedding. Reply from OP: my daughter's arm was amputated, when she and my late wife were in an accident. Tracy didn't say it directly, but I could tell this is highly likely the reason why, so that's why I said she cares more about aesthetics than people. Am I naughty for calling my niece prettier than my daughter? I'm an aesthetician. Some of the services I provide are waxing and facials. The pictures on my website and in my waiting room desperately needed to be updated, so I asked my niece, 19, if I could get pictures of her in exchange for a few free waxes and facials. My niece is a very beautiful girl with nearly perfect skin and very thick dark eyebrows. She's also part Middle Eastern and has a lot of those features, which is important to me since most of my clients are Middle Eastern women. My daughter, 17, heard about me using my niece's pictures and asked why I didn't ask her. I tried to be vague and say niece's skin color and features matched what I was looking for and fit my clients better, but she kept pressing and refused to take the answers I gave her, until I finally snapped and told her that I won't be using her. She doesn't take care of her skin and it shows, and because drawn-on eyebrows will not help me at all. She started crying, thinks I called her ugly, and says I favor my niece over her. She's refusing to talk to me and she got my parents on her side. They think I should have done both the girls or neither because it's not fair, but this is business and not everything is fair in business. Am I naughty for telling my sister-in-law that she doesn't have room to criticize the way I support my daughter's passions when her own husband is barely involved with their kids? My daughter Cameron is very artistic. Cam likes doodling and using certain online animation apps, but her preferred way to express herself is through street art such as graffiti. I have found an art class that specializes in graffiti for Cameron, as well as gotten her connected with specific zones where graffiti is allowed. She's staying out of trouble and it makes her happy, so I don't see any issue with it and encourage her hobby. Some context about my sister-in-law Sydney is that she has 2 daughters, my nieces Eden and Ava, and her husband Benjamin is not involved with the girls at all. My brother-in-law is the kind of guy who brags about is such a man because he's never changed any diapers or attended parent-teacher meetings, and Sydney does it all. He's seemingly oblivious to the fact that this does not impress nor earn him respect from other fathers his age. Sydney constantly makes excuses for Benjamin's lack of involvement with Eden and Ava. Things along the lines of how it's her responsibility as the mother, or that since he makes more money, it is not his responsibility to step up as their father. Sydney seems to have internalized misogyny herself. I bring all that up because Sydney has become very vocal about her disapproval of Cam's graffiti hobby, and a lot of her complaints seem to be misogynistic. Things along the lines of how Cameron is 14, becoming a young woman, and needs to start acting like it. And that I should move her into classes for a more appropriate, feminine, form of art like watercolors. I told Sydney that, unless Cam wants to, I would not be changing her art class or discouraging her graffiti. She's staying out of trouble and it makes her happy. I see no issue with her hobby. Sydney called me irresponsible and said to think about the kind of potential partners Cam would attract with a hobby like graffiti. She then said that if Cameron keeps doing graffiti, she will eventually hang around a bad crowd and get into sugar. I told Sydney that she doesn't have room to criticize the way I support Cam's passions when her own husband is barely involved with Eden and Ava. Sydney and I got into an argument, where I admittedly was yelling back at her. My wife had us to escalate, told Sydney off, and we left. Once we got home and things cooled off, my wife explained that she did not regret telling Sydney off over the sugar comment. But throwing Benjamin's lack of involvement in Sydney's face was just a low blow on my end. And that two wrongs don't make a right, since I could have addressed Sydney's comment without bringing the situation with Benjamin into it. I do see my wife's side and realize that bringing up Benjamin was a low blow. The two friends I brought it up to, however, said that Sydney had it coming and that, in a way, I helped Sydney because she needed to look at herself and her own family dynamics in the mirror. Now I'm conflicted. Am I naughty? Am I naughty for giving my daughter back her stuffed animal after my mum took it away? I, M45, and my daughter, F15, are living with my parents currently. Basically, my daughter and I are going through a tough time right now. My wife, her mum, passed away 2 months ago. Our lease for our apartment recently ended, so I figured we could take some time to find a new place. My daughter has a pink bunny stuffed animal her mum and I got when we found out she was a girl. She has always had some attachment to this stuffed animal to the point she needs it to sleep. Since her mum passed, though, she's extra emotional and needs it slightly more, which is completely understandable. It brings her comfort. Well, when I was at work my daughter was home and I guess my mum asked her to take out the trash multiple times. Well, my daughter didn't listen and my mum was about to take her phone away when my daughter said she didn't care. Well, my mum noticed her attachment to her stuffed bunny recently and decided to take that away with her phone. Well, it led to my daughter to have a panic attack. She was very upset and anxious when I came home. I tried asking her what's wrong but she wouldn't talk to me. When I asked my mum she told me. I told her to give me the stuffed animal. I gave it to my daughter and after a little bit, she calmed down enough and fell asleep. Now usually I would trust my mum to punish my daughter when I'm not there. What she did wasn't right, but my mum's punishment wasn't right either. I told her this but she got mad saying my daughter is 15 and shouldn't have that type of attachment to the stuffed animal. And I'm just setting her up for failure. I can't stop thinking about that. So am I naughty? Also, I know people will say something. My daughter and I both are in therapy now. So far my daughter likes her therapist. Am I naughty for not taking my wife's side and siding with my parents? Background: my wife, 28F, and I, 30M, as well as my brother and his wife went to visit our parents as we haven't seen them in a while. My parents, 57, had a box of $300 ginseng in the fridge to be given as a gift for their close friend's wedding anniversary tomorrow. We know this because it came up in conversation during lunch. They also told us to help ourselves to anything in the fridge but to not touch the ginseng for obvious reasons. The problem came when a few hours later my parents called us in a panic saying that they couldn't find the ginseng and if anyone saw it. I didn't take it and at first I thought they just misplaced it somewhere. However, they insisted that they both agreed on not moving it out of the fridge drawer for that exact reason. All of us denied taking it and the conversation got more heated when my father started yelling that someone must have taken it since it only went missing when we came to visit. All of us continued to deny taking it, with my wife being really quiet, and my father said that if it doesn't turn up soon, he'd have to have everyone's belongings checked. That was when my wife admitted that she took it. Apparently it was some popular brand that my in-laws mentioned and she wanted to give it to them, and she thought that no one would notice since it was in an inconspicuous place in the fridge. My mill later called and said my parents overreacted over such an inconsequential thing, and screamed at me that I was a bum face for not defending my wife. The thing is, in my option it wasn't a small thing. My wife literally stole hundreds of dollars from my parents and tried to lie her way out of it. While I agree that my parents shouldn't have started yelling and accusing us, I feel like my wife was in the wrong for taking the ginseng in the first place. This situation has caused a lot of friction and we haven't been speaking since coming home. Am I naughty? Share your story in the comments. I would love to add them to a video.